Revolutionary greetings. Haki Shakur coming back at you once again at another sacred space, another sacred spot here in the city of Richmond, Virginia. I'm at Shockoe Hill on the north side of Richmond, across from the Shockoe Cemetery and the historic Hebrew Cemetery. But I'm at the historic second African burial ground that many of you may not know of or may not ever heard of this sacred space. It's called the Sacred Second African Burial Ground, but it goes by many other names. The new Negro Burying Ground. It also went by Potter Field. Speaking of that, this video I'm dedicating to over 20,000 lost identities, 20,000 Africans, 20,000 women, men and children who have been buried with no identity in this sacred space that I'm standing at right now. And to spark this off, I'm basically gonna go off a sacred proverb, the Chicano Mexican proverb. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know that we were seeds. These seeds are still here in the hells of North America today. 40 million to 60 million new Africans, misnomer African Americans are still here. These seeds are now roses with damaged petals that are still in the struggle and growing from the concrete here in the city of Richmond. So you are looking at now at the sacred, lost, sacred African burial ground. Take a look around. We know about the first African burial ground, which is the Richmond African burial ground that's in Shockoe. From the late 1700s to like the early 1800s, they closed the first Richmond African burial ground down because they didn't deem that it was a good space to keep burying African or enslaved Africans on that land. So they shut that burial ground down. Many people think that's the only African burial ground. But this is the African burial ground that I wanted to talk about today, because this is the lost African burial ground that they opened up due to free Richmond blacks and blacks of the city started to petition the city that they needed a place to bury their dead. So after the city got so much attention from the free blacks, the free new Africans started to purchase a whole amount of land on this side of town to bury their peoples. So when the free Africans and the free blacks started to purchase so much land on this side of town, eventually the city gave them a plot, an acre of land to bury their own, which is like an acre of land. So at first this was an acre of land for the blacks to, bury the free blacks. But it also became a land where they were burying the enslaved Africans. See what I'm saying? So this in turn became the second African burial ground, opening in 1816. 1816 is the date and year that this African burial ground opened up, which was called the burial ground for free coloreds and enslaved peoples. So, for you to understand that. Also, the key thing that I want you to understand that many of these Africans were children. These were children, because you got to understand in slavery, the majority of slaves were children, black children. So all these type of things coincide today. You see what I'm saying? With what's going on today with the, human trafficking of kids today, the missing kids today. So I'm just trying to coincide that struggle with today's struggle also. The kids that are still missing today. And those kids that were, being kidnapped and were missing in the yesterdays. The majority of these 20,000 Africans that were buried on this land were children. I want you to understand that. You see what I'm saying? 20,000. It said that 20,000 Africans are buried on this hill in this land that has been turned into an old gas station. An old land where they just threw our ancestors away. As you can see, there's no markers. There's no historic markers. There's no commemoration for this burial ground. As I was saying, 20,000 Africans is buried on this land with no historic marker, no type of commemoration. But guess what? There is the city jail. There is the juvenile system. At the bottom of the hill. This is also where the former jail was knocked down and also over there. So as you can see, how slavery transformed into the prison industrial complex of Richmond, Virginia, how all these things are ecosystem and interconnected with injustice on our people, on the African people of Richmond and Virginia, period. Also, this is also the site in the late 1830s where the known medical surgery by the name of Chris Baker, the grave robber by the name of Chris Baker, used to come from the MCV hospital and used to come through this graveyard and dig up bones and steal African bones and use them for medical practices and medical science at the MCV hospital, which coincides to what's going on today also with the organ trade. See how all these things coincide with black people today, the stealing of black bodies today. They were stealing black bodies back then in slavery. Chris Baker, look that name up, MCV hospital, stealing and robbing graves of enslaved peoples, and also the organ trade that's still going on today. We're finding black bodies all across America with no organs and being stolen today. Also in 1832, which coincides with this African burial ground, also after the Nat Turner resistance, the Nat Turner revolution, the city of Richmond put out a state mandate that Africans could not assemble, they could not teach, they could not preach over here in this land. They couldn't assemble without a white man being present. So that's something that you also should focus on also when it comes to these type of things. So from 1816 to the early 1900s, you are looking at the second African burial ground, the lost history of enslaved Africans that are buried all across this land. Also something that you need to know about. When they started to find evidence of the Africans that were buried on this land, they started to find bones all through this field, all on this land under this bridge. Before they constructed this bridge on North 5th Street, they took the bones of your ancestors and used those bones as fillings in the construction work of this bridge. So when you're looking at the stone concrete and this bridge and the stone concrete, you're also looking at fillings of bones of enslaved Africans that they found on this ground and all around this burial ground. So I'm going to pour some libation out. I just really wanted to bring this to y'all today because nobody knows about this history. Nobody's talking about this history except for the African scholars that I salute of Richmond, Virginia, and the people that's in charge of the African burial grounds, all the comrades that's doing the work in that field at VCU, and all the people the elders who brought this information before me, but people in my age group. I really wanted to do this video for people in my age group and younger that don't know about this history across the United States of America. So now I'm gonna pour out some libation in commemoration and memory of these ancestors. But before I do that, I just want to make this, statement to the city of Richmond and the state of Virginia. We need some kind of memorial or some type of commemoration for this lost African burial ground. You got the white African burial grounds up there. You got the Hebrew African burial grounds at the top of this hill. We need this African burial ground to be commemorated and to be memorialized to repair what was destroyed of our ancestors, you see what I'm saying? And their memory and their identities. They must be commemorated in order for this city to move forward. So we need some kind of historic marker, some kind of commemoration on this sacred space and sacred land. So let me pour this libation out in the memory of the 20,000 unknown souls, unknown Africans, our ancestors that's buried on this land. I'm gonna pour some libation out for all those 20,000 African ancestors that's buried on this ground. He say, may their memories never be forgotten. He say, may their identities never be forgotten. He say, may the children, the kids who make up the majority of the Africans that's buried on this ground never be forgotten. He say, may all the African that's buried across Richmond that we do not know about, whose bodies and bones were misused and abused, and the value of their bodies being sold in this horrific slave trade never be forgotten. Issei, I'm gonna sign off on that note, man. Come out here and pay homage to this sacred space, sacred site. This is the second African burial ground. Free the land by any means necessary.